Do you feel rested, my friend?
I feel more rested today than I did yesterday, but no, I don't. I don't very often feel rested, though.
That is,
I rise most days feeling envious of the multiverse me that gets to remain in bed.
mm,
I'd say most, if not, I'd say on average, 1 to 6, somewhere in the range of 1 to 6 days a year, I get out of bed and I'm like, here we go. Hello, day.
yeah, I was on a call a couple days ago. No, yesterday. uh, and it was like 10:30 in the morning, you know, halfway through the work morning for me. And this colleague has 3 teenage children, and they're like, "Oh, I'm just making my kids breakfast." And I was like, "Oh man, I remember sleeping in as a teenager. I don't know if I've ever felt as rested as I did when I think my record was, I don't know, 15 or 16 hours or something.
Hmm.
Um, I recently, well, I don't know, sometime in the last year, I read the book Why We Sleep, and he speaks to that. He's like, our physiology changes, and it's like pretty
Hmm. Yep.
horrific what we do to teenagers, especially making them go to school at 8 a.m. Um, at 8 a.m. for the most part, or whatever. Uh,
Hmm.
so that's a challenge, but I feel the same way most days. And on that note, what I've noticed is I'm we're in our 40s, and I've noticed that I can't. It's very hard for me to sleep in. I mean, my body wants to get up between like 6 and 7 a.m. at this point. So if I don't go to bed early enough,
Oh yeah.
I just won't get enough sleep. It's hard to push it out in the morning.
Yeah.
Yeah, like this. I'm groggy today because I was up pretty late last night and doing some volunteering, and then trying to take care of some things, and then of course watch an episode of Wednesday. Um, which one of these seems non-essential? You decide. I don't know. You tell me. Write in,
Yeah.
folks. Write in and
Right.
tell me which of
Well,
those I should leave out so I can get more rest.
well, and that could lead to our question of the day.
Why rest?
Why rest? Yeah. I mean, that's a good question. We've been trying to think offline of what a good question is. This is the question that we can answer, a yes or no, like is rest essential, that sort of thing. And I know I have a complicated relationship with the word rest, and I didn't used to. But as a probably, I don't know, it's weird to say this out loud, as one who could tentatively be described as a knee-jerk contrarian, when I see messaging come at me very aggressive, when like, I don't like being sold things. I don't like sales. You were just talking about Wednesday. I was just sitting last night, wrapping a bunch of presents. I have influenza A or B, I don't know which one. And last night was the first time where I wasn't just like putting the kids to bed and just immediately just like flopping in my own bed and shoving blankets on top of myself and pulling up my hoodie and putting my winter hat on. And so I had a little bit of energy to at least wrap some presents, because I have a lot of flipping presents to wrap. And I was like, oh, okay, what streaming service do I go to? And I went to Netflix, and then it just immediately did that autoplay function that they now do. Whenever you sit on any property, it starts playing the like trailer or clip.
Yeah.
That has reduced my Netflix usage so significantly. Honestly, I don't think I would have subscribed to Hulu if that Netflix hadn't started doing that. In some way, I was like, was I manipulated? Did I lose the chess game? So they did that, and they're all in cahoots. They're just like, the more we can get you to like lose your brain function by sitting passively in front of entertainment, then it works out for us. And we're creating the Wall-E future. But the reason I hate that is because it's constantly flipping selling me. Like, I'm already on your flipping app. I already subscribe to your app. I'm already on it. I'm already clicking around on the different titles. Don't then be like this. as I look at it, go, this one. No, if I wanted a flipping trailer, I'd click on the thing, select trailer. Like that's how I want it. This whole like shoving stuff in your face. However, I've heard that function like increased like user time on their app. So some people are different than me, but I find that so flipping offensive. And I've found rest and like telling people to rest messaging so aggressive, especially over the past like 4 or 5 years, that to me it seems I have trouble seeing it as anything other than nefarious.
I'm with you on the Netflix thing. Maybe not quite as severely, but yeah, it makes me just sort of feel like I have to like use it strategically, especially if maybe I'm on a phone call and
Yes.
I shouldn't admit that I'm ever surfing Netflix on a phone call, but if there's ever anything else, because it's noisy, I just don't like being unpredictable. I have to like strategically think about when I'm going to open Netflix so it doesn't, make a loud noise. It's just it's like, what the heck? Like, why would it work like that?
I know.
When I press a button, I want to be in control.
I do. Yeah. But a lot of people don't. And then, but listen, this is that, of course, I want to be in control gets to a fundamental problem in the relationship with activity and rest as well.
Yeah.
Because in rest, although this is the thing, okay, maybe this will drill us down immediately to it because we're already meandering. What are we talking about with rest? Like if it's rest and it means flipping sleep, then I'm like, heck yeah. But the whole thing of like unplugging, you know what I mean? Like me time, self-care, that sort of stuff. I've come to be like, whatever that is, we are obsessed with it as a culture. And it's basically the reverse of the exact same problem during the whatever boomer 80s. Greed is good. Work, do all the cocaine, work 20 hours a night, buy, sell, short that stock, blah, blah, that sort of like rat race insanity. I think not insanity. I was a child, you know what I mean? But like, that's the message I was being sold, is that that's what we were doing, that we were rat racing too aggressively. And I think right now we're in the exact opposite. And I think I've seen the detriment of that throughout this pandemic and all the other things we've talked about, is where I was like, oh my gosh, people were so psyched to just like Netflix and chill and get fat or whatever and go whatever. I can't, maybe I'm an old person, but goblin mode, like whatever the word of the year, A, it's not a word. B, I'd never heard of it before they used it. So maybe it's popular in circles I'm not part of, but people were so excited to go goblin mode that I was like, it's not our problem. I think we're over rested in terms of like brain function, productive living, critical thinking. I think we're underslept, which is, I think, one of the reasons. It's because we're over rested. We're underslept because we're over rested because we indulge so much in me time and this stuff. And listen, I do it too. I'm not speaking like you filthy mongrels. No, it's us, all of us filthy mongrels. And I do the same thing more aggressively now that I have kids than I ever did before. Which when they go to bed, I'm like, what can I stuff into my eyes, ears, whatever, to just like do what I want, just be me and just be the king and have the vassals bring me all the cinema that I desire.
No, I think that's a really good distinction, and even sheepishly trying to make our Netflix branch relevant. The question could be: Is Netflix restful?
Right.
Or is any TV really restful? Because it is. I remember people saying during the pandemic, like, oh, 100 years ago, I don't know, they had to walk up hill both ways in a blizzard during the pandemic, and all you have to do is Netflix. Shut the hell up.
Yeah.
Well, okay, but is that really healthy?
No, that's work. I mean, in some ways, that's a if someone would follow through, this is why critical thought is obviously lacking. How much better for us would it be if we had to be home and walk uphill both ways in a snowstorm? Be phenomenally fit, would be able to deal with like temperature adversity, right? It'd be like a living ice bath. All the quad strength and the glutes, the glute impressions, as well as the like, unless we took the same route every day, the neuroplasticity of having to like deal with these circumstances, as opposed to again, just this morning, because I was feeling tired and stupid, I looked up, I was listening to a podcast about sort of whatever cognitive development, and sort of premise they were exploring was that passive media consumption decreases sort of neuroplasticity. What's the other one? The neurogenesis, sort of development of new nerves or whatever. So in some ways, it's like all you have to do is sit home and watch Netflix. This is like, what do you mean, man? That's terrible. That's terrible. This is going to turn my brain into mush. You know what I mean? But I think we're too many generations separate from that messaging, which was always a little overbearing anyways. But I grew up with that, right? That like too much TV is going to turn your brain to mush. But now all the grandparents that said that are dead or in a home somewhere and no one's listening to them. And TV is so good now, because TV used to be way crummier than it is now. So you're like, well, but it's almost like a movie, you know.
The snarky upgrade to that I've heard is, well, the way I heard it was Fox News, although you could insert MSNBC, is doing to our parents what they thought TV was going to do to us.
Yeah. I mean, I would say all news media. All right, listen, or maybe let's just point the finger at everybody. Freaking nonstop television is just exactly what they said it would be. You know, it fills us with
a matrix neural link to program.
Yeah, no, we're choosing it. We're happily choosing to do it, and because we're choosing it, in some ways, we're creating a better version of it. You know what I mean? You can be intellectual. I still haven't listened to enough of the podcast to figure out what passive consumption really means, you know. But really, this is why I think video games are the greatest form of of narrative, greatest form of storytelling. I don't think they've gotten there yet, but I think it's inevitable that they're going to be it's really going to be pretty much the crowning achievement, greater than literature, greater than cinema, because it's active passive, but it's just active enough that you feel active, and it does like create new, like it does stimulate your brain enough that you don't feel like a complete wasted space, even though people are like, oh my gosh, you know, gaming, that's the new melt your brain, right? But we do see that matrixy future already ahead of us. And it's not just media though, it's all forms of like, what the F are you doing this for, you know? But I think I don't think rest is that important in that sense. However, my big caveat is rest is commanded by God. The Sabbath day. Remember the Sabbath and keep it holy. That it's the day you rest. You actually don't rest though, but you rest from your labors. So you stop living in a way that's just like all the things that I want to do. You do no work. It's sort of like it's a premise that values labor and work, which I think we should as a society. Value labor and efforts, whatever that means, and all people can deliver different kinds of labor, whatever is valuable to that society. We should try to ascertain the middle ground between what we feel like we desire to pursue or are given to pursue and what the world actually needs, and try to find how we meet together in that way synergistically. But having at least one day off from yourself being a king or queen of your own dominion and how you schedule your day, I think is phenomenally would be truly essential. But I think the problem is with the way that we sell rest, like through social media and stuff, pretty much just says rest is you being in control. It's when you just say all the things that you get to do. And that's really like, it's rest when no one's bossing you around.
Well, that's one quick loop back, and then you just reminded me of something.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, just talking about especially the whole premise of hey, all you have to do is watch Netflix, especially in the context of what we've discussed at length on this show.
Yeah.
About the nature of the lockdowns to begin with, right? So just not only sort of placating people, but then dumbing us down even more at a time when we really needed to be thinking critically and quite vigilant as a society, man.
Yeah, I mean, really, it was the time for us all to get in here. Let's all figure this out together. You know what I mean? It was definitely not a time for like, everyone go away. We've got this. You know what I mean? Which is fascinating. So then, and this is the thing, it's selling it as like, here, you can just do what you want, but not really. You know what I mean? Isn't that, it's trying to, so that's why I was just like, okay, this whole rest thing is a form of mass manipulation, psychological manipulation. Because then it's like, oh my gosh, you get to Netflix and chill for 2 weeks / 3 months, / some places 6 months, 9 months, whatever, a year. And then it turned into, okay, well, you can stop Netflix and chilling if you've done this other thing. Then they put a caveat on it, right? You can come back to work if you've done this, that, and this. So I was like, wait a second, that was a straight up prison maneuver. That was a trick you into prison maneuver. And it pretended that, again, it deceived you into thinking you got to do what you wanted when you were literally doing what it is someone else told you. It's weird, right? This is why rest is so complicated, I think. And this is why sleep, I'm like, sleep is way less complicated. you just need to sleep. I think we're an underslept culture. And I think it's because we're an over-rested culture.
I mean, I would agree with that. That's basically the premise of that book. Why We Sleep is just,
yeah.
Not only do we not sleep enough, but we don't even understand much about sleep. He starts out the whole book by saying, imagine your, doctor deliver or whatever, midwife deliver, hands you your baby and says, beautiful, perfect baby, 10 fingers, 10 toes. And by the way, about 1/3 of this person's life will be spent in this like catatonic state that we don't really understand. We don't really exactly know why or what's happening. Don't worry about it. Totally fine. Totally good to go. And yet there is some just colloquial, like we know we need to get rest. We know we ought to get rest. Here I'm merging them. We know we need to get sleep. I'll be specific.
Yeah.
I think I do kind of merge them, but I'm glad you're distinguishing them. We know we need to get sleep before the big test or the big game or the big whatever.
Yeah.
Or the big day. I mean, hell, I slept so well before the big day.
Yeah.
By the way, I don't know if you noticed, but I got this poster behind me, the Bongo's Dream Dorm is the one.
I love that poster.
And framed and, embedded in glass, as we like to do. And
now to recognize something as worthy of preservation.
Yes. So we can never touch it again. I can never smell it or
well, it's we need sleep, and that literally will pass out eventually. Like our bodies will force sleep upon us. I mean, I think it's one of the ways we know something is a requirement. And that's related. This is only a sidebar. We don't need to follow this, but like at times that I have refrained from compelled ejaculation, I have been fascinated thinking, I was like, well, I'm doing this because my body kind of needs this. How long it actually takes for my body to go ahead and just make that happen all by itself.
Oh yeah.
It's quite a bit longer than I thought. So I was, again, I think masturbation is absolutely a form of, I think in some ways, maybe our most undiscussed and concrete forms of, I'd say generally maladaptive rest in the world, thanks to the internet and porn, honestly, as well. But like when I've just not done that, instead of, let's say, masturbating every day, maybe a couple times a day, then, and I was like, well, because that's kind of like what I need just to kind of like stay baseline. You know what I mean? That's just like self-care. Then
that job, man.
And then I didn't. It took like a month, maybe a month and a half before I started having like nocturnal emissions, as we learned about in sex ed. So I was like, okay, no, that's how often my body, like, quote unquote, needs to, because then it just took care of it. Now, likewise, I think sometimes I've gotten to that framework with sleep though, and I don't think it's a one-to-one. So that's what I'm saying. It's a side thing, but there's something to learn there, in that like the degrees to which things are needs will certainly reveal themselves as such. And I think our ability to like appropriately organize what our needs for rest or sleep or whatever compulsion we have, food. I mean, obviously, right? We're a food addicted culture. We're a media addicted culture. But I think it's been fascinating whenever we explore those things, which sleep deprivation, but you'll just pass out. Like you'll start hallucinating if you don't sleep for too long. And then you can just fall down and you literally can't keep yourself awake. So your body will make you do it. But with sleep, man, it'll make you do it pretty quick.
Yeah. Oh, and I mean, in that book, Why We Sleep, I mean, statistically compares being sleep deprived as more dangerous when you're driving than
Yeah.
alcohol or drugs, or I mean, it's just it's really not good. So I've I don't know, how should I say, a rest mentor, I'm going to say, right here. I don't think anybody has regularly demonstrates. And again, I guess I'm merging sleep and rest, but my cat, Suki, is curled up next to me in an adorable little ball.
Yeah.
I just, yeah, like she's amazing. She's just almost constantly.
Yeah.
We wonder, you know, we're different species, but we're both mammals. I'm like, like how much more ought I to be doing that? And again, going back to that book, I mean, one of the, you know, the sleep science is pretty young, but one of the things he felt very confident about was that we are wired to nap. Like mid-afternoon, you know, an hour or two. And I've always struggled with napping. I've tried, it's like when I can do it, I guess I'm getting better, and maybe that's just maybe that's getting older, I don't know, but I tend to, I don't know, I feel like I would want to nap just for like 20 or 30 minutes. Just efficient.
Yeah.
But then I nap for like 2 hours and then I feel groggy, and it's like,
Yes.
weird.
Oh, I find, yeah, it's extremely difficult. I used to, when I could still do coffee, I discovered and employed very regularly the coffee nap, or like the espresso nap. So you literally like down a cappuccino or whatever, and then go immediately to sleep, and then wake up in like,
Oh my God.
20 to 45 minutes, and then you feel alert because the caffeine is kicking in. I loved it. It was great. It didn't work for Archie because she didn't, my wife, she takes too long to fall asleep. I fall asleep in less than 3 minutes, maybe, usually, maybe sometimes even seconds. And that's always been the case, even before I had like an autoimmune issue or whatever. I'm not like, I've had sort of insomnia stuff again, like, I don't know, four times in my entire lifespan. Like four nights of my life have I been like, I just can't fall asleep. I pretty much lie down and my body's like,
And I've spent more time sleeping in a room with you than anybody other than my brother and like maybe one girlfriend.
yeah. I know, it's funny. I told someone the other day, I mean, I brought this up. I relate this anecdote at least once every 2 years of sleeping in college. I think we slept for 17 hours around, but we like slept, went to bed, I don't even know how late, but then slept throughout pretty much the entire day until it was dark, and then kind of like leaned over from the bunk. It was like, oh, you're still sleeping? It was like, yeah. And then we high-fived and went back to bed for like another 4 hours or something. It was like a 16 to 18, somewhere in that range.
So we've been celebrating sleep since the very beginning.
Yeah. But see, for me, that's one of the reasons I have some fear around sleep. Now, I don't like dislike it. It's because I love it. You know, as Nas famously said, you know, I never sleep because sleep is the cousin of death. Maybe I like a little bit of death in my life. But I love sleep. Like, I can imagine myself in a multiversal sense as someone who just, again, was, and this is, I think, part of the appeal of it in our modern society, is like as a sovereign, you know, a prince who just like lazed about, slept as long as he wanted, and showed up for certain court things, and then functions, and just made most of his life one of leisure, because there was no drive to accomplish. And I like that. And I have twin forces, I think, inside me, where there's aspects of myself that want to transform the flipping content of the world itself, the world entire, in a fundamental sense, as well as I would love to just sleep for 18 hours a day for like 3 or 4 weeks, and then decide how I wanted to proceed. I love sleep. But sleep is full of dreams for me too. Like, I'm a lucid dreamer. So for me, it is kind of like plugging into the matrix. It's very appealing. So I want people, when I see all this rest messaging, I want to be like, stop talking about rest. You don't need more rest. You probably need less. You need more responsibility. You need more things to do. You don't need less. You don't need more self-care. You need more self-awareness. You know what I mean? It's not just about like kissing your own ass and telling you how lovely you are. Fucking just do something. So you stop thinking about all this stuff so much. Like we're over rested, man. And I think that's why we're so anxious. We just don't. I think we're like a fun, especially our generation and our generation. Like I think in the backlash to that 1980s rat race, many of us are hilariously unproductive individuals. I don't know many people who look in their life and be like, man, I really did all that I intended to do. And I just, but I forgot to do my life. I'm sure those people exist. I just don't know a single one of them. And I'm not one. I look back and I'm like, oh my gosh, how, and I've made a ton of stuff. I've made thousands of like videos, you know what I mean? That's like part of what I do. I've done hundreds of improv performances. I've made movies. I've made TV shows, but you know what I mean? I've like done all, I can like put all the things up to like, I can arrange my room to make it look like I was really productive. But the amount of hours I spent not being productive didn't lead to that productivity being better. There have been times in my life when I've rested when I should have. There have been times in my life when I've slept when I should have, and both of those opposite as well. But I'm not, there's no part of my life being like, oh, that's really what I've looked back and regret on, Oh, I should have spent more me time. I was like, oh my gosh, but so much me time, dude. I think, and I honestly look at our country too, just in terms of like how we just have gotten crummier and crummier. Like we're less good at things. Like our literacy index has fallen and our obesity has risen and our, you know what I mean? We're not, and that's not an accident, man. It's because we're being compelled, I think genuinely compelled to be straight up lazy, And the problem is then in that laziness, we actually become phenomenally productive because that productive instinct still exists within us as human beings. It's like made in the image of God. We are meant to do. We end up doing meaningless things or doing acts of self-service. And then we feel discombobulated because we're like, we don't feel really useful. And I would like to imagine that if you were up late, at least partially last night, like serving others, that I hope you slept better because of that.
Yeah, I mean, that's generally true. The volunteering, I don't think was the challenge. Because yeah, right. I mean, and it's also a lot of physical labor because it was delivering propane to houseless neighbors. So it's quite physical and cold. And but then it's what I did next. I mean, it was staying, I don't know, I was like literally doing some bookkeeping and then I watched TV. And for me, it tends to be around. So one of the interesting things is for, I don't know, as long as I can, for a lot of years, I have not used an alarm clock. So I really celebrate that. I mean, I think that's amazing. It's like, it feels like such a luxury because I just want to, like you were saying earlier today, like just follow my body's rhythms. As much as I can. And I notice my body really wanting to get up. Yeah, like today I woke up at like 6 a.m. Sometimes it's 7. So it's somewhere between 6 and 7. So if I get to bed at like 11 o'clock, it's night and day. Oh my God. It's literally night and day. Okay.
Literally, yes.
But it's the difference between me going to bed at 11 o'clock and midnight has such a massive impact on how I feel the next day.
Yeah.
I mean, there, but I'm just saying.
That's so funny. Well, because I know you from our collegiate era as absolutely an owner of an alarm clock that you would notoriously pause or snooze. I don't know. I mean, easily in the dozens of times. I'm sure there's a record in there, probably in the range of 30 or so. I can hear the screech of various alarms that you had over the years.
I still have that same alarm clock in my bedroom.
That would be triggering. That would put me in a place of discomfort. So in a way, that's wonderful. Although this speaks to a weakness of mine in general as well, which is like I have a somewhat adversarial relationship with my body, especially now at the moment, because I'm like, my body's flipping annoying. And so, because it's literally attacking me on a daily basis. So I'm just like, I'm I'm treating my body like it's a neurodivergent child, where they say really, when a lot of the times the neurodivergent kids, when they start attacking, that you're, at least early on, it would be better to not react if you can, because they're essentially, that's kind of, that fosters a little bit of the mania that can lead to like assault or attack, and that sort of like flip outness. So they're seeking some sort of response, and even negative, whatever, attention, all that sort of thing. So if you can kind of stay in a place of peace, and that's not how we deal with these sort of things. He's like, you become non-reactive. So I'm trying that with my body, since my body is constantly attacking me. I'm trying to stay in the, well, that's just not what we do. And then most times being like, all right, well, if you're going to be that way, I'm going to have to ignore you. I can't give you any attention, because I don't want you to foster, any relationship of positive feedback for the way that you're destroying me, body. But because of that, I don't know what my body's natural rhythms are, really. And I don't naturally, as far as like my natural wake up, I don't naturally wake up. Almost, like, I don't even know what it would be. It would be maybe 10 or 11, 12, somewhere in there. If I actually slept till I was done sleeping. But I love sleep so much that I don't know. This is why this whole embodiment work stuff that you get into is very interesting to me, because I was like, my body confuses the crap out of me. Like, my body tells me to do so many things that don't really work out for my body. Like, my body I put things in my mouth that I'm like, yes, and then my body flips out and bleeds and freaks. I'm like, my body says yes. Like, up here in my body says yes. Yes. Oh, this is it. Up here in my body, like here, somewhere in here, my body's like, yes, put this in here. And then my body, as I eat it, goes, yep, not poison. Yep, it's exactly what we want. Yay. And then it comes down here. And then my body is like, ah. So I was like, what? My body is like, not to be, so my body's not trustworthy completely, right? But in order to have a proper relationship with one's body, you kind of like have to know your body well enough to know when it's lying or when it's telling the truth, because your body's not always telling the truth.
Like which part of the body is it coming from? Like, sugar. I think we evolved to need a very tiny amount of sugar.
Yeah.
For energy, and to know that was sort of precious and valuable. And now, I was at a gas station. I was just like, it's like everything's just sugar wrapped in plastic.
It's amazing, right?
It's like,
yeah.
Yeah.
So go ahead.
Well, I was going to jump to something else if you want to comment on that.
Go.
Okay, so the thing you reminded me of earlier was something I created a few years ago called the Mario brick. I don't know if I ever told you about the Mario brick.
No.
And I actually, this was back when I was doing more coaching, and I was really getting into like as a coach, you got to like develop content and put out stuff. And to your point about productivity, it was very helpful to have that motivation, because they actually produced some good stuff.
Yeah. Well, and it's to help people.
Yeah.
I think helping people is, I'm going to go ahead and sell it right now. I hope maybe I'm mostly saying this to make people angry, and then you can finish your anecdote. I think helping people is a cure for depression.
Yeah, absolutely. Hugely. And somewhere there's a YouTube video of me talking about mutual aid very much along those lines.
Yeah.
And so I called this, there's my blog. And I don't know if the word rest is even on this. Yeah, I don't think I use the word rest at all. So I talk about, I say, give yourself the gift of time. And then a lot of my thing was about self-love. And so the idea is you put a Mario brick on your calendar. I even got the step-by-step. And then it is an embodiment exercise. So the Mario brick, for those who don't get it, is like Mario would go around and smash these bricks, and then a coin would pop out. So the idea is you put this Mario brick on your calendar and you don't plan anything. So when you get there, because you really don't know what's going to be exactly going to be going on with your life ahead of time, or what shape your body's going to be in, or whatever. So you get there and then you smash it, which means you delete it. probably for me, an electronic calendar. You can, I don't know, scratch it out or
Yeah.
whatever the hell you want to do. Or maybe, I don't know, maybe a Burning Man thing could be to make like a life-size Mario brick thing where you actually like run
Yeah.
through,
Yeah.
smash.
Yeah.
Oh my God, that's okay. That's my new destination.
Yeah. That is literally I mean, I was intoxicated at the time. That is literally a Burning Man art concept that I was like, how could we do that? Like out in the playa, like put a bunch of bricks, just enough for like that amount of run, and to be able to run and at least make it ding every time you'd have to like jump really high to touch it. Like you'd have to be someone who could like, you put it like 10 feet up. So you'd need either to be a very high jumper or you'd need someone to boost you. So it would create a community. And then every time you hit it, it would ding. And I was like, but how do we make it float in the air? Because I was like, it would bum me out if you could see how it was held up there.
Drones.
Yeah, bones.
So then you smash it.
Yeah.
And this is the key part. You know, do whatever practice you might have. For me, it's like just sitting and contemplation, like, you know, meditation.
Yeah.
Just see what comes up. Like, just really like ask deep down. I mean, maybe not the cravings, like I want a cookie.
Yeah.
Oh, that reminds me. There was a Simpsons episode where Bart was in a garage band, and so Homer comes on. He's like, I can't hear myself think. And they stop, and he says, his brain says, I want a donut.
Now you heard yourself think.
Anyway, nobody's going to be able to follow the Mario brick from this, so we'll post the link on Tumblr or something. But the idea is you bust it, you ask your body what it really needs, and then you do that.
Mm-hmm.
I think the last I did one of these, I hadn't done one in, gosh, I don't even know, a long time, because like the pandemic almost felt like this. Yeah. Well, it sort of theoretically, lockdown, I should be specific, sort of felt theoretically like a Mario brick, but it sort of wasn't, because it wasn't intentional. It was just like this drawn out ocean of, you know, like just weird anxiety and
you need beginning and end times, man.
And so this is like, for 3 hours, like I'm not gonna schedule anything else. I'm not gonna let anything else happen. I'm just gonna follow, you know, my body, follow my bliss. And I was even like doing like video, sort of, I videoed my first Mario brick, which is much more rare for me than you. So anyway, that's the idea of the Mario brick.
Yeah.
The one loop back I wanted to do though was about the Sabbath. I mean, speaking of beginning and end, because that I'm very curious about that. I mean, I've never had that as a religious practice.
Yeah.
It seems like really groovy, you know, to carve that out and just honor that. It feels sacred.
Yeah, and it's the beginning of the week too. Like, I think I didn't realize, I was like, you look at calendars, that's how it is. But my whole life, I always thought of Sunday as the end of the week. And then it was like, well, no, it's not how calendars are arranged. That's not how we organize. Now, listen, I understand we created weeks or whatever, but we can argue about that all we want. But essentially, Sunday is the first day of the week. So it's like, it's actually how you begin the week. You begin the week in a state of rest and literally be like, okay, well, I'm going to serve God first. And then, God, what do I do from here? And you may already have all the things, of course, you need to do. And that was the thing that we were like, it was commanded to rest from, which was like all the labors that you have. Like, you're not supposed to like shovel the poop out from under your donkeys. You know what I mean? Just all the things, like, this is just practical life stuff. But we actually even set that aside in order that you have a proper relationship of like, A, why you're doing anything. And then B, also have a sense where you're like, before you get up to an exhausting week, you actually check in. You're like, wait, Lord, what do you want? Okay, what do I want? How am I feeling? What's going on? Like, what it's really it's a turn and regard. You know what I mean? And I was jealous, man, growing up, of people who didn't Sabbath, because I was like, they get 2 days off. Days off. You get Saturday, which is like fun cartoon day. And then Sunday is just like sleep in day, more cartoons, like movies. What do other kids get to do? Whereas like as a kid, Sunday felt like kind of like a work day in a way. And it really is, but it's a work day for the Lord. It's a work day, not for you, which is, I think, one of the most important things. So then it's like It's not even self-forgetfulness exactly, but it is heading that direction on the compass, where it's just like, it's not about me. I can't, if this is helpful for me. I can't change the world to the degree that I desire to change the world. And I don't mean to be like a negative Nelly, because I still think yes, I am the ridiculous naive who thinks in a single internet comment thread argument that could, how I can see how that could cascade, and one voice crying the wilderness, one person saying no, can change the entire world. We were taught that way in history, and it was probably naive and probably silly and narrative based and trying to inspire children or whatever. But that's how I live my life. But I'm also realistic enough to know my ambition will always exceed my grasp. And that's kind of part of the joy, right? Is to aim as high as possible, aim higher than you can achieve. And maybe someday you'll get there to what you want to aim for. But in the very least, whatever, aim for the moon, you'll get the stars, whatever, aim for the stars, you'll get the moon. I don't know, whatever, how that phrase goes. And I think that's one of the great things about having a day of rest. But that's what it's rest from. It's rest from self in a lot of ways. It's rest from like your self desires, which I think we could use generally, just to shut off the obligation. Because I feel like that's what we're obsessed with in the virtual world, and the like increasingly virtual world, is like a comprehensive, macro understanding of ourselves. Like most people are now like even just like some very biased experts, but biased experts in ourselves, and
Oh,
then a
yeah.
lot of people like yourself or whatever, encouraging people, okay, well, if we're going to be obsessed with ourselves, let's do it intentionally, consciously. Let's look at our shadow selves, look at our light self. Let's really do this comprehensively, instead of the sort of like spurious way in which we generally conduct it. But in some ways, perhaps the whole endeavor might be idolatrous or navel gazing anyway. You know what I mean? But I appreciate at least trying to purify that which is sort of like impure, but there is something in there that's worth knowing. Like I think it's important to know oneself. But I think because of the virtual world, it's too much, man.
Yeah, there's some parallel there with, I think, meditation and contemplation. Like that, that's basically the point of it.
Yeah.
Is I don't know, get outside ourselves to get deeper in ourselves, maybe.
Yeah. Or just get away, man. Just stop. And this is why I think people love passive entertainment, though. Archie talks about this all the time. My wife, she watches shows and shows, especially. I don't watch a ton of television. I like movies, but I've always been skeptical of television, for reasons we won't go into. But she watches stuff, and she watches things that I'm always surprised that she's watching sometimes. And she's like, well, I want something that I can like tune in and out of. She's recipe testing a ton or whatever, and she'll be watching Heart of Dixie or whatever. And she's like, yeah, I can kind of tune in and out. And then also when she's done working and she's thinking, and she's making 3 recipes at a time, and her brain starts to feel so freaking full, she's like, want to just shut off. And I was like, I think more people do that than confess it. That, you know what I mean? And then you try to paint it as like, oh, I'm watching this particular show to keep up in the culture, or people want to justify and talk about television shows they like to talk about, oh, it's so good, so I'm watching this thing that's so good, it's a really good art thing. You know what I mean? We have this thing we're kind of constantly justifying in that way. It's also a form of appreciation, but we are also justifying this desire to just disconnect and shut off and stop.
Yeah.
And so in some ways, like quote unquote mindless TV is I think a maladaptive form of like absence meditation. Like if you're meditating, you sort of absent yourself from yourself to just be like, I exist. I barely exist. I may not even exist. You know what I mean? But just to stop thinking about myself or thinking about what I want or whatever. So if you can just watch quote unquote mindless TV, then you're like, oh, good. It makes my brain stop working because I'm overwhelmed by existence.
Yeah, I think I had heard this and picked it up and even wrote it that forward to that book. The dissociation can be a form of self-care.
Mm-hmm.
And I still believe that, but I sort of wonder the part that comes before it.
Yeah.
It's like what led to the need for self, like, yeah, maybe that's what you really need because you're so overwhelmed. Or I'll speak for myself because I do that too.
Yeah.
I push myself so hard that I'm just like sitting there being like, I can't even type anymore. Like I don't even know what.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, like how do I stop before then?
Well, it's you're creating your own trauma, essentially. You're traumatizing yourself by pushing and this happens with sleeplessness too. You're essentially torturing yourself. Like lack of sleep is a form of torture. Like it literally they used it in like whatever. What's the great whatever? The Guantanamo Bay. So that they torture people with lack of sleep. So we do that to ourselves, except we do it in a form of pleasure, which is super weird. So then the dissociative response, I mean, think about how typically we would have thought of that. Like if you're a prisoner of war and you might just kind of like look at the wall and kind of zone out and kind of see pictures in the wall and disassociate because you're in a flipping prisoner of war camp. It happens to rape victims. I'm just going to reference a song, but like in Tori Amos's, Me and a Gun and a man on my back, but I haven't been to Barbados. So how am I going to get out of this? Like literally describing a dissociative, like just starts thinking of like things she hasn't done because she doesn't want to be there in her body. So in sexual assault, in rape, in prison of war camp, in like wartime, right? You like try to find things where you can just like shut your brain off from the trauma. But why are we in like a phenomenally profitable society and in phenomenal degree of historical comfort? Why are we having that level of a trauma response? Like something has gone wildly wrong, either with the society we've created or with our own ability to bear up under any sort of pressure.
So that's a good segue into something I wanted to bring up.
Yeah.
Which is the Nap Ministry
Mm.
by Trisha Hershey. I'm going to pronounce it that way. I hope that's correct. It might be Hersey. It's spelled Hersey. And I haven't gone super deep into this, but I like the idea of it. The book is Rest is Resistance, a manifesto. Again by Trisha Hershey, the founder of the Nap Ministry. And I want to read this description because I think this might give us a couple of things to chat about broadly. And of course, this is like the marketing description for the book, but it's kind of juicy. Disrupt and push back against capitalism and white supremacy. In this book, Trisha Hershey, aka the Nap Bishop, encourages us to connect to the liberating power of rest, daydreaming, and naps as a foundation for healing and justice. We like to live in a well-rested world. Far too many of us have claimed productivity as the cornerstone of success. Brainwashed by capitalism, we subject our bodies and minds to work at an unrealistic, damaging, and machine-level pace, feeding into the same engine that enslaved millions into brutal labor for its own relentless benefit. In Rest is Resistance, Trisha Hershey, aka the Nap Bishop, casts an illuminating light on our troubled relationship with rest and how to imagine and dream our way to a future where rest is exalted. Our worth does not reside in how much we produce, especially not for a system that exploits and dehumanizes us. Rest, in its simplest form, becomes an act of resistance and a reclaiming of power because it asserts our most basic humanity. We are enough. The systems cannot have us.
That is a powerful statement. Can we pause the scoring? I just have to buy a break and I'll be right back. And then I think this is a great way we'll take this as a big chunk into the conclusion. That's a great, that has a ton. So so I'm going to go to the bathroom and daydream about what you just read, and you do the same. We'll be right back. So you launch in with you're familiar with that. So you drop that bomb on me. I obviously have a ton of thoughts, but you go ahead and unpack your thoughts first.
Well, you said something off the record, which I think weaves in with this related to winter.
Yeah.
And I think maybe that you were even, I don't know if that's what you were commenting on at the very beginning or more broadly, but I certainly have seen a huge uptick in the sort of, hey, like it's winter, we are naturally called to hibernate. Just creatures as mammals.
Yeah.
That doesn't seem implausible to me. I don't know if I've seen any sort of studies around it, but
No, it's just it's a different work. It's a smaller. I think your rotations of work are intended to be like denser.
Got it. But the part about the Nap Ministry, well, one thing quite personally that has really grated me in the context of, because I hang in the circles where everything I just read related to the Nap Ministry is pretty much in line with anti-racist kind of culture work. But one thing that does bug me is, particularly in my white male affinity group, there are times when I just get this sense that, well, actually, I don't just get a sense. It's like there's one person in particular who's just like, well, flat out, like try to sort of call you out for resting or for self-care. Like,
oh, interesting.
Somebody misses a meeting because they're like, yeah, I'm not feeling well, or I need rest, or I need to take care of myself, take care of my family. There's sometimes blatantly or just this kind of air of like, oh, well, isn't that nice that you're leaning on your privilege, because our marginalized brothers and sisters don't get that opportunity. And
but they do. Literally everybody has it. Like, you know what I mean? Everyone has that capacity. I mean, a houseless person, right? They have ability to rest when they need to. It's obviously harder for them, but because of various choices they've either made or have been shoved upon them, or combination of both. But I think that's definitely the thing. I find her comments so provocative. A, you're going to lose, and B, dude, who are these magical elves that people are so concerned about? Well, they can't do this. None of us. Is it the whole "none of us are free until all of us are free" thing, or is it none of us can rest until all of us can rest? It's like basically, you'll never get to rest because there are children, whatever, 15-year-old boys right now mining cobalt for your flipping iPhone, and they're not able to rest. Literally not. They can't just choose to, because someone will hit them on the back of the head with a stick. So until they can rest, we can't rest. That's not going to work. Like, we won't be able to free them because we will collapse. You know what I mean? So yeah, I deny the entire premise that would tell someone they can't rest. Of course, listen, we also need type A's that are like that, who are like, you said you'd be there. You know what I mean? So, and I'm not a type A, so I'm not a producer. I'm not just, that is a producer mentality. So I understand. To me, it's just an ill-founded method of motivation for something that may need to happen.
Yeah, and I think if we're make a generalization about any sort of quality of being connected to the ability to sleep or to rest, I'd more likely point out trauma. I actually just started reading The Body Keeps the Score, which I sort of looked around for years, but which is held as like one of the, I don't know, main tomes of trauma work. And he starts the whole book out by talking about like a Vietnam vet who can't sleep, because he has nightmares. So yeah, that to me is a more likely correlation. And then from there you could say, okay, which groups suffer more trauma systemically, right? And I think that's a correlation more to identity-based groups. But anyway,
but that's the interesting part. It's like, that is such a huge leap. So that's, of course, why her statement in general made me irritated, to then leap from someone who's been in war to like an identity marker. It's just, it's obviously an enormous cast. It's an enormous leap to then be like, well, we can definitely accord those to each other. You know what I mean? Especially with the Vietnam is very specific, right? Because the draft was enacted, as opposed to if a soldier is traumatized for having enlisted. That's a completely different scenario, because then they've made specific choices that would absolutely produce trauma, and then did produce trauma. So we actually have to have a slightly different relationship to that as to someone who was essentially forced or mass coerced into a situation that caused them trauma. But I think that's the thing when she's like, you can fight capitalism and white supremacy I was like, well, first of all, Bishop, the Bishop of Rest is gonna, like, y'all are gonna lose.
The nap bishop.
Sorry, Nap Bishop, the Bishop of Naps. She's y'all are gonna lose then. So go ahead. Yep, go ahead. Rest as much as you want. Knowing human nature and knowing my nature, you tell me I should rest and it's really important for me. Cool. I'm just gonna start resting all the time. You know who's not gonna rest? Capitalists and white supremacists. In which case, cool. Then this is how you lose and you get colonized. All right. You didn't fight as hard. All right. They win. The productive people win. Look at China, man. China is straight up winning. I don't think ethically they're winning. Enacting, they're perpetuating genocide. Peace out Uyghurs. But they're winning in terms of the productivity, the world stage, blah blah blah. You know what I mean? They so. And now, granted, is it more ethical to lose a battle and like an unfair battle? That is a great argument. You can absolutely make that. The Bishop and Naps can make that. But I was like, it's not. In trying to frame it against entire systems, which are really just systems that people use. Capitalism is just like a system, a motivating system, or a way to commodify value and structure handling of goods, essentially, of things that people don't have that they need and things that other people have that they need. I mean, I think she's not talking about capitalism or white supremacy, is what I actually think. And I think in some ways, as usual, I'm getting irritated because I'm looking at those words in their traditional meaning, and they probably don't mean at all what I'm even frustrated about. So let me stop talking.
Well, I didn't read the last paragraph, so maybe this will help.
Yeah.
Rest is resistance is rooted in spiritual energy and centered in Black liberation, womanism, somatics, and Afrofuturism, with captivating storytelling and practical advice, all delivered in Hershey's lyrical voice and informed by her deep experience in theology, activism, and performance art. Rest is Resistance is a call to action, a battle cry, a field guide, and a manifesto for all of us who are sleep deprived, searching for justice, and longing to be liberated from the oppressive grip of grind culture.
Interesting.
So that I think grind culture is the correlation to capitalism. So I'm curious if that term lands better with you.
Yeah, maybe. But grind culture is just part of life, man. Like flipping, having a child. Ultimately, once it gets down to labor, it's flipping grind time, man. When you're trying to finish something, you're trying to finish the arc before the flood comes, it's grind time. Grind is really just about, like, most of the time, not always, just poor scheduling. I've grinded. Grind culture wasn't forced upon me, but I got to tell you, I was an active proponent of grind culture throughout my entire collegiate experience because I waited to the last flipping second to really do all the work, in which case it was grind time. Now, continual grind, I don't know anybody who's in that. That would be a form of slavery. But I've worked in production most of my life. So then for me, that's like grind time is when you're like actually shooting something. So that's when your schedule goes, or right into heading into that, like early pre-pro, people are coming in, whenever. It's 8 to 10 hour days. Then once you get real close to production, then it's 10 to 12. When you're in production, it's 12 to 17 hours a day until you're done. And then once you get into post, hopefully if it's scheduled appropriately, you can kind of dial it back. And then you're more in the 10, 12 until you're done. And then for most people I know, like who I've always known freelance people, and then you rest. You do flipping nothing for 2 weeks. I was like, hey, it's the same thing around harvest. Or I was just watching Yellowstone the other day. I was like, once you got to brand all your cattle, all right, that's all hands on deck. You're not sleeping for the next 2-3 days. It's just a grind culture is part of what we do. We're just trying to achieve so much so often. And we have such a difficulty ranging what's important. I think that people grind on too many things. But I think we grind on self-love and grind on self-pleasure, and we cram. I don't know. It's just, I actually think that's about an individual aptitude. Now, if that's her problem individually, then she's saying, hey, this is my problem. And if it's my problem, it's probably other people's problem as well. So in that part, I totally, I'm totally down. I think I still might be in general opposition to her entire framework, but.
Yeah. Maybe I'll actually read the book and see what it means, but
yeah.
But I think, yeah, I mean, that let's assume that's true. Like she just was doing this for herself, and then and then that way I can relate. I mean, probably the same motivation that led me to even write the thing about the Mario brick.
Yeah.
Um, and I see that in myself. I don't know, as an entrepreneur, uh, and not having kids. I mean, it sort of, in a way, almost permitted me to just expand like my work, and then I've really paid attention to the justifications that come up, whether it's purpose oriented or
Yeah.
helping other people, or there's all these reasons that I'll just be like, yep, got to keep going, gotta
Yeah.
keep, and so it was actually, I don't know, like I think it was in the first year of the pandemic where I had to just confront that, because
Yeah.
I realized, like, oh crap, like I basically have the schedule of a workaholic.
Yeah.
I'm just sort of masking it because it's, I don't know, like purpose oriented, or I don't know, purpose driven, or what am I trying to say? Work for good, or helping
Yeah.
people,
Yeah.
building better systems and cultures and ideas. And so
Yeah.
I do resonate in the sense that I don't I dream of some kind of work where that it doesn't have to be that way.
Yeah.
Really curious about the idea of like a 4-day work week. Like, it's funny, you just do the math. I mean, for several years now, I think our like average engagement in corporations has been something like 30% in America. So
Mm.
like 70% disengagement. You
Yeah.
know, it like real basic math. If that's true, then we could be basically getting all of our work done in, like, I don't know, the first 2 days of the week.
Yeah. Yeah. Theoretically. Yeah. 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 But even that's part of the grind mentality too. But I think, which is why it's not evil. Grind culture is not evil. It's just it's a method. It's a procrastinator's method. Let's be honest. It's a procrastinator's method of how to get done what needs to get done, and society needs to be transformed.
Well, I
So
agree with
yeah,
what you said. Like,
yeah,
it's fundamentally a scheduling problem, because
yeah,
why do we stretch it out? Because, well, not everybody's going to be available those 2 days. So you're still going to have that one weird
yeah,
meeting on Thursday,
yeah,
or just to your point, like, I don't know. I wonder about that, because I think I've never been in quite the production environment you're describing, but
yeah,
I think I do well with like bursts of work and then bursts of rest.
yeah.
Um, I don't know. It'd be interesting to experiment more.
Yeah, I loved, and of course I've been surrounded most of my life by like freelance type people. I love it. And it doesn't leave me depleted. 16, 18-hour days, I don't feel tired.
Mm,
You go shoot 16 hours and then you're like, who wants to hang out? You're like, you don't want to go. Like, it's enlivening. When you're doing something purposeful, there is no detriment. And so this is the thing when I'm like, not that everyone's going to find work that's immensely purposeful in that sense, and not that it's easy to get that work, right? Most of my life has been struggling to get the work. So, but I think that's a much more important reframing is, and this is again a Christian point of view, but it's like do all things as unto the Lord. So then, like, everything you do, whether you eat or drink or whatever you do, you're eating, you're drinking, you're working, your labor, everything is supposed to be like an act of worship, which means then it's purposeful and it's meaningful. Even if it's literally as simple as like, I'm packaging, and this is not, I'm not, again, I'm not castigating those who do this. In some ways, it sounds like a great job, but like packaging things at Amazon. I'm putting things in boxes. You know what I mean? And people talk, stand-up comedians talk about this all the time. So maybe it's a comedian's look at the world. But like, if you're going to work at Amazon packing boxes, flipping love it. Flipping be the best person there. Make it meaningful. Flipping find a way that it can be meaningful. You know what I mean? And ultimately, if your whole life's purpose is to serve yourself, it's very difficult to make that meaningful, because you're like, how does this benefit me? It gets me money, and that's it. And then no wonder you're going to resent capitalism, because money is not that amazing of a motivator. It's bare. You can then do things with that money, maybe, but then you're so many degrees away from your motivation. It's too absent. Like, I don't know how you embody that. It's too conceptual. But like if you work at a gas station, be the flipping best gas station attendant ever. Like, why not be fantastic? You know, why not be great at what you do? Find the joy in what you're doing. And it's not always easy. Same thing with parenting, right? I like launched into parenting somewhat intentionally. So, and it's not always fun, but like it's kind of my gig. It's my job to go, okay, but what is the joy in here? And what is the joy even in the muck and the mire, in the grind of it? And not just be like, oh no, we're in the grind. This part sucks. You know what I mean? You're just like, okay, but embrace the suck. What's good in the suck? Like so I think in some ways, what you went through is probably good to go, it's a great time to reevaluate. But when again, I think the lockdowns were that's harm to you in many ways. Stop doing beneficial things. I mean, they shut gyms down. You know what I mean? I'm not turning this into another lockdown episode, but like they shut gyms down and churches down. You know what I mean? So then, hold on, what? Hilariously, the Washington Post just published a thing like this week being like, new study says any degree of exercise, can produce beneficial COVID outcomes. It was like, that's what everyone said when you said we're shutting the gyms down. You're like, what are you talking about? Exercise leads to better health. Like again, we all experience trauma. In this case, it was forced trauma. They literally penalized businesses that didn't comply. So in some ways, they forced us into an absolute false reevaluation. You know what I mean? So it was compelled. So in some ways, that's the weird thing. Forced rest is the most capitalist flipping thing they could possibly do.
Well, it's interesting you went there because my friend B Bocalandro wrote a book called Do Good at Work. And I actually saw like a preview of a TED Talk she's working on about that very thing. And she tells some amazing stories about just how you can bring purpose into any job. And
absolutely.
Yeah, it's I haven't read it yet, but
cool. It's a cool name too.
Yeah, I know.
But yeah, that's the way in which you can rest in doing. Right? That's the whole Christian effort, is to kind of constantly surrender in continual activity. Like you're surrendering outcome, because I'm not in charge of outcome. And you're enabled to make it a dance. So the responsibility comes not from capitalism can be joyful. Capitalism can be conscious. Capitalism, in many ways, capitalism has been one of the most beneficial systems for the world in general, meaning we've raised the standard of living, less people are starving, more people are reading, less babies are dying, that sort of thing. Over time, we have more trees. We have we're a greener world than we were 30 years ago. So in a lot of ways, it's produced a bunch of good things. We can absolutely see the harm. It's very easy to look at what's so rapacious and selfish and competitive in a really gross way about capitalism. But it can be transformed. So this is the weird thing when you vilify just an organizational system that hasn't, well, especially I would say, this is again the Bishop of Naps, when she brought up Black liberation theology, which I find hilariously waylaid, which is pretty explicitly tied into Marxism. So then in that case, she's sort of, in being anti-capitalist, she's essentially championing a form of Marxism, not subtly, throughout her thesis statement. And then Marxism, we know, is the most harmful organizational philosophy of human beings that has ever existed. Meaning, under Marxism, Mao and Stalin are the two greatest despot mass murderers under a sort of Marxist thought-based construction. Marxism is more harmful. I've been only realizing this lately in terms of just running the numbers. And I was like, why do people hate Nazis so much? I think it's really just because Nazis have cool symbols and it's something you can kind of hang your hat on. But Marxists have mass murdered more people than any other organizational system in human history. So then that's why I mistrust her. And this is why I generally mistrust this whole rest thing. That I'm like, what is this about? To me, and I was especially if you weave Marxist thought in, which she did with Black liberation theology, was that whole thing again is very much like the lockdown, which is rest, go home, do your thing. We're going to take care of it. How Marxism always turns out is basically just the same way as capitalism, except worse, more dead people, more murders. And then a very small amount of people have all the power. And then a ton of people are left destitute or dead, which seems to be a human problem, mind you. But anyway, I just want to keep going back to kick. I want to keep kicking the bishop of naps, even as I've taken naps the past 4 days.
And the point about work, I think Ander, one of the latest Star Wars shows, handled that pretty well when he had to like get into his work.
Yeah. In not to spoil, but yeah, in a forced labor scenario. Well, and you can see how it transforms your existence. I mean, this is the whole the philosophy of meaning, teleology sort of concept, that even in concentration camps or whatever, find a way to make your day meaningful. Find a way to do things throughout your day that's like give you meaning. Essentially the thesis that it is more important for us to have meaning than food, water, shelter, safety. So again, this is the crisis I think we find ourselves in. But this is the good thing about the past 2 or 3 years is by being authoritarian, what is the word? Sort of despotically demanded to obey and go away and stop being productive. We're able to stop and examine, go, okay, well, wait, what was I doing? And I think that's why a lot of people haven't returned to the labor force. I mean, yes, some people are just like sucking on the government teat or whatever. But then why wouldn't you do that? Because you've been paying them for years. So why not get as much of your money back as possible? Better get some unemployment or else they're going to give it to Ukraine anyway. So, but it also makes you go like, what am I doing? Like, why was I at that job? Like, I didn't love it. I don't know how to. So then you can either go back to that job with a new frame of mind and be like, I'm so excited to be productive again. Because I don't think there's anything wrong with being productive. I think it's something wrong with not being productive.
So speaking of being productive,
yeah.
Here we are. I don't know when this will air, but today we are heading into what I typically neutralize as the holidays, but with you I will say Christmas. And I'm sure we celebrate that with different meanings. So, and it's, I often try to, one way all this shows up for me is just how hard it is, or how hard I make it for myself to take time off. And
interesting.
Yeah. Next week I'm sort of fighting myself to preserve the couple days I've managed to carve out.
Yeah.
There's all these things I want to wrap up and do, and oh gosh, wouldn't it be lovely? So I'm just almost always in that quagmire of I think I'm extremely productive in a lot of ways, and I so crave rest. But I do love Christmas and just the time it is with my family, and even though we don't have much connection to the religious significance of that, it's just a beautiful time to rest and to be together and do nothing for a minute. So how is it for you?
Well, I'm unemployed, so I have the opposite problem. For me, like being productive is far more my challenge at this phase of my existence as a human being. And honestly though, even when I was like busy all the time, it was never hard for me to like shut it down. Like I do that on my birthday. I would just be like, oh, it's my birthday. I'm not doing anything. No, I'm not. Like, oh, we're doing this at work. I'm like, yeah, it's my birthday, dude. I'm not working on my birthday. What are you kidding me? It's the biggest holiday of the year. But it's easier. It's very easy to do that when the imposition on your schedule comes from outside. For me, anyway. If it's like, oh, someone needs me to do something, I was like, I don't care. Like if it's not time to do that, I could care less what your need is. But I think some of that comes too from having like a Sabbath practice, which means your audition's on Sunday. It's like, oh, I don't work on Sunday. So that's not going to happen. And maybe that's a culture that people don't have in them, in which case it takes them to this place where they're just like, and they just want to reject everything because they feel so imposed upon. It's hard for me to feel imposed upon generally, I think, in that sense. But yeah, no, I don't know. Carving time, but again, I like sleep. I like sleep. I like rest. I enjoy not doing anything. I enjoy like getting fat. I enjoy like eating a ton of Little Debbie's. I like pretty much all of December, pretty much by mid-December. Now I've been so sick, I can barely eat or do anything. So in some ways that's been helpful, but yeah, it's easy to chill because I think, again, for the religious significance of the Christmas holiday is the advent of a solution for the sort of negative motivation for production. Meaning my desire to be perfect or prove my perfection through effort was revealed to be an improper solution through Christmas, right? So Christmas is the sort of it's not even the incarnation, because it's like, no, I don't think anyone thinks Jesus was born in December. So I don't, whatever. But whatever, like Jesus, of course, came to earth as like a child inside of a womb. So it's not like his birth was somehow especially all that phenomenally interesting, except you can now see him. So like that's important to people, but he already existed inside of his mother's womb or whatever. So he was already there. So we're just celebrating like 9 months later, he came out. You're like, okay, I guess it's a moment, whatever. But in that, the whole thing of like logos, the word made flesh. So like in it, like essential pre-existent truth, or essentially God being revealed in flesh means that us trying to become God through our efforts and productivity, through our building our towers of Babel in our capitalist like zeal to like transform the world and be everything it is that we dream we could be in our moments of rest, and then failing in that is such a burden, you know. My like the burden of my inability to be everything that I know I can be is existential weight that I have been unable to lift on my own ever. In Christ coming in incarnate form, perfection in incarnate form means, there is a path of possibility, and it's not my own doing. So that's most exciting. So instead of like, who's really going to judge me for not living up to my own standards? Like me, people who know me real well, but ultimately like, who cares? Who cares what I think and who cares what other people think? But if there is like a creator who judges all of us for exactly that thing that we know that we're guilty of, then I'm effed, right? But Jesus comes and he's like the path of not being effed for that. So in that way, this whole season is like it's just like, hence the gifts, right? You're like, here's gifts you don't deserve. It's not because you're amazing. This is why Santa sucks. F Santa, right? No, it's rearrange his letters of his name and it's Satan, right? Because Santa destroys the whole concept of Christmas and actually makes it a burdensome time, because the whole premise of the whole like Santa thing is like, he knows if you've been bad or good, so be good for goodness sake, right? So then based upon your goodness, on how obedient and good you were, then you get gifts, right? And that's not at all the Jesus incarnate premise. The Jesus incarnate premise is, no, you don't deserve any gifts. And yet God came and offered a way for you to have gifts forever. So in that way, it's a great time to rest. And it's easy in this season to rest from labor, because it's the complete opposite of labor, which is again why I hate the whole freaking Santa thing, because it puts labor back on it. I mean, talk about a freaking capitalist miasma. The whole Santa concept is a brutal, like authoritarian invention, as far as I'm concerned. I hate Santa though. We could do a whole episode on that.
But the movie Elf is funny though, right? I mean,
yeah, and Miracle on 34th Street. It's a funny construct. And Saint Nicholas himself was actually pretty much a badass. There's a famous story. He apocryphally, I think I said this to you. I had this whole like stand-up comedy bit where everyone was complaining about Thanksgiving this year and being like, Thanksgiving is synonymous with genocide. I was like, first of all, this doesn't make any damn sense. You're talking about the 1621 or 1628 meetings between pilgrims and native peoples that was added to the as like an apocryphal element of the quote unquote Thanksgiving myth in the 1840s, over almost 100 years after Thanksgiving was declared. that is pretty much like complaining that saying Christmas is about, violence and religious zealotry because of the actions of Saint Nicholas, which has nothing to do with flipping Christmas. It's just something added on later. And then it's like complaining about Santa Claus. So Saint Nicholas at the Council of Nicaea, apocryphally or really, no one really knows. Another Accius, another sort of bishop there, denied Jesus' divinity in front of Saint Nicholas, and Saint Nicholas punched him in the face.
Whoa.
So Saint Nick, hardcore. And I think Saint Nick actually would be flipping furious that he had any association with Santa Claus and with works-based righteousness. Like, do you see how messed up that is? All right, kids, if you're good this year, you'll get all the gifts. Oh, you've been bad. Santa sees you when you're bad. Oh, golly gosh, you didn't do the right thing right now. You know what I mean? And it makes it this like, oh, you have to like do all these things in order to have love. So it creates a double-sided terribleness, right? And how can people rest in a season like that when they're like, oh, did I do enough good things this year to deserve this rest? Did I accrue enough? And then will I be able to do it again next year? Or do I deserve no rest because I haven't done enough good things? I mean, my goodness gracious, that'll kill. That is the most like anti-Christian concept, and it'll kill you, man. I think it's going to give you an ulcer, dude. So that's how Christmas helps me relax.
Well, I will own that I have spent a lot of Christmases dissociating. I know I'm not alone, but I'm going to own it for myself. And drinking, overeating, stuffing myself, numbing out.
Yeah.
I'm setting an intention not to do that entirely this year. I mean, yes, we'll eat, drink, and be merry, but I, especially as my parents' health is waning, and I'm just like, I want to, like, why do I do that? Like, why would I not want to be here in this? It's just amazing time and just totally feel everything in this moment.
Yeah. Well, I hope you get that time with them, man.
Thank you.
And again, isn't this, but look at, that's another example of grind culture, right? But for whatever reason, humans are messed up, dude, right? Let's just say that. We're messed up. Like,
that's
what
the question for today. Are humans messed up?
Are humans messed up? Yes. It's our shortest episode. But like, look at that like and I'm not, again, this is not castigation of you. I'm the same way or it's castigation of both of us. That it's like, oh, once you start seeing the deadline of like, oh, dang, like, what if my dad fell down again and he didn't get back up? Like that could happen like soon. So all of a sudden you get a little grind culture-y and you're like, I gotta kind of bear down on this. I gotta put some extra hours in because the deadline is approaching. And this is the wonder of death. This is why we should memento mori all the time. Let's just keep a little bit of grind on our mind all the time. So we don't have to cram session these sorts of things, and then we don't have to aim for dissociation to cope with the regret we have that we procrastinated again, even though we know that's like not the healthiest thing to do. And yet I still do it. I've castigated myself for cramming, for creating grind culture in my own life for 40 years.
I'm going to spend Christmas maximizing the efficiency of quality time.
Yes, there you go. It's an NA, it's some of it, but you are on a good tip though when you're talking about your Mario brick of some of it is about like, and I'm not good at scheduling at all, so this is why I just find it almost mysteriously appealing, or I haven't been good at scheduling in the past, is scheduling, like actually like pre-prioritizing that which you prioritize. So instead of being like, oh, I'm going to really make sure to spend more time with my parents, being like Tuesday 4 to 6, Wednesday 3 to 5, you know what I mean? Like putting it, like making it a thing, like prioritizing it, or else basically whatever is scheduled will just eventually eat the things that are more important,
Right. No, I remember this last year, I pretty successfully carved out between Christmas and New Year's. And one day, all I had was a lunch with a friend, which is just astonishingly rare for me. That little scheduled. And I'd never been to her house, and I brought her this pizza, and we talked for 7 hours.
Awesome. It's like my favorite day.
It's just like, how do I make that happen more? Obviously, by being a billionaire.
Or being a billionaire in your mind. Just
Probably
knowing,
my
knowing,
heart.
yeah, knowing you have all the billions that you already you already need. You
And I
have
love
the
you,
billions.
and I know you're sick and I'm on the mend. So I hope we both get some rest and
Yeah.
you'll, my friend.
All right. Sleep well, and I'll talk to you on Christmas Day.
Yes, let's do that.
Love you.
Bye.